Well, hi there. You're watching and or listening to Podcast is Broken, a weekly Canadian podcast, just a podcast, a weekly podcast in which we try to make Canadian news and politics funster.
Ooh.
My name is Brittlestar.
My name is Steve Boots. I am also Canadian, worth noting, and I advocate for more fun.
My name is Lisa. I too am Canadian, and I think we are swanky and lavish.
Ooh.
Oh, timely reference. I like
it.
I was just feeling swanky today.
So how are you guys doing? Good?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I just came back from a little camping trip. How about yourself? How you been?
I've been well. Lisa, how about you?
I'm doing great. Lots of stuff going on. Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, I took a couple of days off and there was no news at all.
Nothing happened.
Super chill.
Yeah,
Oh.
which is great. That's great how it does that, isn't
That
it?
means all the news is your fault then, Steve.
Oh, absolutely.
Everything's
Never
stopped.
thought about that angle.
Oh, it's like when you say nothing's going to go wrong. It's like, okay, everything is now directly your fault.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, thank goodness you're back, because that means there's news, which is good. And that
Good
means we have stuff to talk about, which is good.
Good timing.
So there's been a bunch of stuff happening, but do you want to lead us off with, I was just thinking to myself the other day, God, wonder what's happening in the world of irrigation in Saskatchewan.
So the Saskatchewan government loves wasting massive sums of public money on little super niche projects. In Saskatchewan, there is a fairly large man-made lake called Lake Diefenbaker. My family has a cabin.
Interest, Lisa.
My family has a cabin on it. Actually, yes, it's quite lovely. It is a dam reservoir. It's a real thrill, I tell you.
It's a clean show, just a reservoir.
And so what's happening is the Saskatchewan government has very abruptly and with basically no consultation decided to spend just over $1 billion digging a whole bunch of irrigation trenches out of the lake in order to get to just about 100 farms. And the best part is, in order to do this, they're supposed to do a round of consultation with Indigenous leadership.
Sure.
It didn't do that. Supposed to do an environmental consultation. Didn't do that. They're supposed to do a feasibility study. Didn't do that. And my personal favorite part is that because the project isn't officially a project, they don't have to do any of that. They're saying that even though there's going to be shovels in the ground because the project isn't finalized, they don't have to do any actual legwork.
What do you mean the project isn't finalized? What does that mean? You mean like, but if it's, it can't mean that if it's just done. There's got to be a starting point.
It's basically this very mysterious $1.5 billion hole in the ground they're digging. That they won't explain to anybody why they're digging it or who benefits from the digging. And so the plan, are you ready for the incredible reason why they're doing this?
Yes.
Tell us the plan.
What incredibly lucrative thing do you think they plan to do here?
I mean, I imagine
I'm not big on dams.
Bringing water to mid-sized towns in Saskatchewan is probably what I'm thinking.
Right?
Oh, man.
It's
if
worse
you want
than
to
that.
get rich, there's only one way. Potato.
Okay.
You know what just sack of potatoes is going for now? What is it, $50,
Gold,
$75?
it's gold.
I swear to you, the entire plan is to switch a whole bunch of crops over to potatoes.
Really?
Because the per acre profit is way higher. And the reason why they don't want to talk about the fact that it's for potatoes is because Saskatchewan has a legendary disaster where they've already tried potato farming in Saskatchewan once with a potato growing crown corp called Spudco.
Spudco. That sounds like it's from The Simpsons. Like
it was literally called
Spudco,
Spudco, and it was a disaster. Like Saskatchewan is not for potatoes.
What?
And so basically they're going to try to grow potatoes in a desert by digging a bunch of holes. and spending $1 billion of tax dollars on it.
How
But we
many-
can't fund education, healthcare, none of that. We're good. Just holes in the ground.
I think PEI is going to take issue with that. Like, that's their thing.
It is, but you know what's interesting? I think PEI is sleeping on it because I was, as you remember, I was in PEI recently, and we both, Shannon and I, remarked on the fact that there was startlingly very little mention of potatoes, apart from like the occasional road sign for new potatoes. But I mean, who doesn't want new potatoes? I don't want used potatoes.
Delicious.
But I think they were, because it's Cavendish potatoes, right? In PEI. And I think we saw maybe one Cavendish building, and that was it. There wasn't like on the menu, it wasn't like, hey, get a load of these potatoes. You should have these potatoes. Have these potatoes. Wasn't a lot of that. I'll give you the potatoes were good. But maybe Saskatchewan saw something here. They saw an opportunity, a window opened for them. And they're like, you know what? Let's get into this potato racket.
But they have a potato museum in PEI. Did you go there?
We didn't have time, but we were made aware.
Then you
of it,
can't
Did you
talk
go to
about
the Potato
That is
Interpretive
true.
Center?
I can't. What I mean, there was. I think if you've got that many, if potatoes are such a hot commodity, I'd be shouting it from the rooftops. I'd be jumping up on those Green Gables. I'd be telling people about my potatoes,
flinging your braids from side to side, talking
slinging
about
them.
I mean, okay, so in fairness, dryland wheat pays about $400 an acre to the provincial GDP,
Okay.
compared to $5,500 an acre for irrigated potatoes.
Oh wow! Well, that's a big difference.
It is, but we're spending $1 billion on not that many acres.
You got to speculate
And
to accumulate.
Wait, it's not just that. There's a consequential impact. You're going to have to change the license plates and take your little wheat thingy out and put a big old potato in the middle now. I mean, this is going to
No one's
cost
thought
them.
this through.
This is what the billion's for.
That's right. No one's thought it through that far. That's.
I mean,
tisk, Mo. Tisk,
I've
tisk.
always dreamed of a more potato-themed home province. Like, we here in Saskatchewan look to Idaho with envious eyes.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Oh,
They've got it all down there in Idaho. They've got it all. Yeah. Yeah.
Stay local. Think of
Idaho's the
PEI.
potato place, right? I've got that right.
Yes.
I think so. Yeah.
Idaho potatoes. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, will this have any beneficial impact for the citizens of Saskatchewan? Or is it just-
Mo
it's just
doesn't care about that.
Yeah.
I mean, it winds up like whenever you look at anything that's happening in Saskatchewan, it's pretty easy to do sort of the mental math on what it costs because there's just above 1 million.
Yeah.
There's just above 1 million people here.
Yeah.
So $1 billion project works out to about $1,000 a head for everybody in Saskatchewan to dig holes for a bunch of farmers.
That's a lot of potatoes.
Central Saskatchewan to grow potatoes.
That's a lot of. Does anyone know offhand what a bag of potatoes costs right now? Like it's $3 a bag, is it not?
$6. Well, it depends on the. Are we getting
Depends.
5
Are
or
you
10
buying like
pounds?
the humongous Costco bag, or are you buying like
No. I'm talking about a regular
your
bag.
fancy
of 5
little
pound.
roadside new
I'm
potatoes?
gonna ask Shannon. Hang on, Shannon will tell me. How much is a bag of
Oh my
potatoes?
god! I think it's like $6.
That is
I
an
think she-
amazing thing to text your wife in the middle of recording a podcast.
One day
She wants
can
to be part of it. Ever since she listened in last time, she wants to be part of it.
can we
now.
please just go through the texts that you guys text back
No,
and forth? You and
absolutely not.
Shannon? Come on.
There you go. She says $5.99 on sale for 5 pounds.
She's amazing.
Oh, Shannon's on it. with this kind of stuff.
I love how much
This
his
is what
glasses
plays
are
romance
moving
in our
to do
relationship.
this.
Well, it's because of my age, Steve. It'll happen to you eventually. One day your hair won't grow back as well. Your beard will just keep falling out like it is now. And Thanksgiving, it's $1.99 for a 10-pound bag.
Okay.
Oh,
Do you guys
a
even know what you've
bargain at
gotten
twice
into?
the price.
And that's potatoes forever.
So
That's like you buy
clearly
a
we
bag of
can't
potatoes
sell
and you-
these potatoes at Thanksgiving. That's the wrong time entirely.
That's the right. You gotta create scarcity. You've got to
Right?
create scarcity in the market. You got to keep potatoes off the market until just after Thanksgiving.
I think there's going to be a PEI Saskatchewan battle. I really do.
Yeah,
It's
so-
about time.
Yep.
And like I feel like we can take them because we've got Little House on the Prairie, they've got Anna Green Gables.
But this is what I'm going to say. You're landlocked, right? They can come all the way around.
They can go around and sneak attack from the
Right?
other side.
So I don't know if this is still true, but for a long time, Saskatchewan had one of the biggest naval bases in Canada.
Did it really?
It was a training base.
Well, I hope so.
Wow. This is what water
Now
would
listen,
look
men.
like.
When you get out of the sea, it'll be much different than this. And there'll be a lot of water.
Not nearly as dusty.
You see the not water? Imagine the exact opposite of that.
Oh my God.
Well, keep us posted on what happens with the Saskatchewan irrigation not project.
The
That's-
$1 billion hole in the
I
ground.
mean, come on. It's
So
similar.
our annual education budget's like just over $2 billion. So we could
This
just
is
like
a lot.
raise the education budget by 50%, but we're not doing that.
No.
What is
Well-
it with provincial governments making goofy at this, with seemingly sort of off the cuff decisions like this, like with Doug
Oh,
Ford? and-
This
Conservatism.
one's super straightforward. It is vote buying. These
Right.
are regions of the province
Yeah.
that they need voter support in. And
Yeah.
so they're giving super cheap irrigation to farmers to lock up their votes forever and ever.
First, we
And
get
so-
the potato vote.
Well, but that's part of it. But the other part of it is in Saskatchewan, there are unrestricted political donations.
Oh.
And so a lot of these big farmers are also big donors. What a crazy coincidence.
I mean,
And they donate potatoes?
No, they cash in the potatoes at the potato bank.
Oh, God, that's clever.
potatoes are limitless. You've got mashed,
That's true.
scalloped
Scalloped.
potatoes, like
Oh,
you can
gratin.
rice them. Like, come on, right? But out of protest, even though as an Albertan I am your neighbor, I will only buy PEI potatoes.
Oof.
I said it.
Wow. Wex, it's
I
happening. Wex,
will
it's happening.
continue my lifelong history of having no earthly idea where the food I eat comes from. It
I
comes
think it-
from
I think it
the
just says
store.
it just says Canada. I think it just says Canada. But now there'll be competition, so I'll know. Anyway,
Well, that tracks. Well, we'll move on from there.
speaking of dumb conservative ideas,
Please lead us into this, Lisa. Please lead us.
well, there's just been a lot in this last week of, oddities when we're talking about comms, videos, tweets, that kind of
Oddities
stuff. Oddity.
is a
Well,
word.
oddities
You're being
to the
generous.
Yeah.
I would have said insanity, but sure.
well,
Lunacy.
yeah, it's been a bit wackadoo. I mean, the obvious one, although it's been wiped now from everywhere, is Mr. Poilievre's
Pierre
yeehaw.
Poilievre's Birth of a Nation.
Oh my God.
Like, what on earth was that?
So for those of you who didn't see it, it is online. If you look for CPC,
The internet never forgets.
For all of us that reposted it
CPC
before.
WTF on YouTube, you'll find it. And it was saved there by a faithful citizen. And it's like kind of like it's got a real sort of almost like a Dr. Strangelove feel to it, and it's at its best. In that scene where like the cowboy rides the missile into the off the plane and stuff like that. It's a little bit like that. It's very sort of overhyped. It's very weirdly edited. It's sort of the crowd surges and cheers and then it gets cut off really quickly by the next sentence. The
It
imagery,
uses a bunch of stock.
which is stock footage. Fair enough. You listen, you got to save money. That's great. The stock footage they're using isn't cheap. It's all like $600 a use or whatever, but that's fine. But the big problem people had with it, of course, is that the majority of the stock footage, apart from some shots, was not Canadian. Was actually Ukrainian, Russian,
My favorite one was
Indonesian.
there's a moment where
Serbian
it's
or
like looks
Slovakian?
west to the foothills, and it's Indonesia. And
That's
it's like you looked a long ways west.
That's really
friend.
good eyesight.
That's a long way to go, let me tell you.
It was weird though. It was
Yeah.
super weird.
It was weird, and like it's weird for a bunch of reasons, but I think the weirdest part of it to me was this sort of soaring fairy tale tone that he had to it. Like he was telling a fascist bedtime story.
Yes.
Like, oh, the thugs march down the street and keep the hooligans in line, and you snuggle your children to sleep under the watchful eyes of the government.
It was very propagandist.
It was so creepy.
Yeah.
And I think the weirdest part about it was how heavily edited the speech itself was. Like you could hear the crowd get cut in a couple places. But my favorite part, I made a video about this, so I spent far too much time listening to it and watching it and cutting it up.
Same.
There are a couple of moments where somebody audibly laughs at him.
Yeah, numerous times.
Yeah. Because
I love that.
Because part of it, like the at least the beginning part of it was done at Stampede. Right?
Yeah,
like
of course.
so
the whole speech was at Stampede.
Yeah. So I mean a month and a bit ago. But I mean, come on, the white t-shirt and the white hat. Somebody said it was reminiscent. I read it on Twitter of like the Wish version of Boss Hog. Like, I mean, and that like I can't get that out of my head.
Duke boys.
Damn Duke boys.
The thing that I found weird about it was the fact that like there was people laughing for sure, and you could hear it in the crowd. But I think that that was the weirdest part about it, was that it was a speech that he had given at Stampede. It was obviously he was almost being a bit campy with it. He was like playing up the over dramatic and all that kind of stuff. And I think parts of the speech that when he was giving it in person were probably, and people can correct me if they were there, were probably meant to kind of be, ha ha ha. Yeah, this is over the top and this is funny and whatever, all that kind of stuff.
Are you doing one of those, I think this is what he meant, bullshit things that you said you weren't going to do?
I'm trying not to really hard. But
there is like a little sort of a smirk to it. I'll grant you that. I'm not sure I agree, but I see where you're coming from.
That's what made it weird for me, was that it was this Frankenstein inspirational speech. And it was just sort of like stuck all together, all weird.
Our home, your home.
Yes, I loved it. I mean, I had so much. I did a video as well, and
people need to go see it because it's brilliant.
Well, thank you.
Magnificent.
But I mean, to me, it was just reminded me of the scene in Naked Gun where Leslie Nielsen's Frank Drebin is giving this speech about how great America is, and it was just like it's just crazy and goes off on tangents. And I was like, oh, this is the only way I can make this funnier is by just going even weirder from that.
Yeah.
It was already funny. I mean, when it first came out, I quote tweeted it with, I don't even remember making this video. And,
right.
And then like that got 2,500 likes of people going, yeah, that's right.
You need to trademark, I'm telling you.
And my favorite part is the dirty delete. Like they just hope nobody would notice it happened. We're just going to delete it
and that it's been picked up. I think it was The Guardian that picked it up, like critiquing that, right? That it was so embarrassing that they had to like get rid of it. And it's like, could we do that with the whole CPC? Like they're pretty embarrassing.
Did you see what their defense was? Oh, it's magnificent. So Sarah Fisher, their director,
it was a liberal bot. Sorry.
No, so she did two things. She had two approaches because they never just try one thing. They just throw it all out and see what sticks.
Sure.
So she opened with everybody makes a mistake. You know how it goes. Because that's the attitude that the conservatives take to everybody else, obviously.
Yeah, they're very generous with that.
Yeah, like
very
everybody,
forgiving,
little hiccups here and there, you know.
Yeah.
But the second part was that she brought out an ad that the Liberals ran in 2011 that used stock footage from outside of Canada. And she's like, see, even the Liberals do. It's like, you dragged up a 13-year-old ad? Like, that's a thin reach,
we've got people dragging up 25-year-old pictures of Justin, so it's not surprising. It's not surprising.
I know. I sort of felt initially, because I mean, I often get called the liberal shill. That's my thing, and I'm a paid liberal influencer.
Feeling like a villain, baby.
Paid liberal actor.
There's like people, they'll do like fake pictures of me doing stuff, and it's just like it's all ridiculous and funny. And I do have to say, I'll state clearly here that I have never been paid by the Liberal government to do anything. I've actually refused to be part of the Liberal government, a Liberal Party before. But I mean, it's I don't get any money for that kind of stuff. It's just dumb, and it needs to be made fun of.
Yes.
So I mean, I remember exactly the 25 years ago thing with Trudeau and the blackface. It's like, yes, I made a video about that as well, because that was stupid. Because the first time it's like, oh, okay, young idiot. He did it twice. What?
Yeah.
He did it 3 times.
What?
Good Lord.
I know.
I'm laughing because there's a lot of people out there who don't understand that we don't make videos and stuff because somebody pays us to. We do it because there's something wrong with us.
Right?
I do it in the hopes that someone will pay me.
We like the sound of our own voices, and we have a lot to say.
I mean, that's evident. Exactly.
Yeah, something broken inside me, so I talk into a camera.
Validate.
Validate. There's something about the phrase what's the full thing? I'd rather ask for forgiveness than beg for permission.
Yeah.
And that seems to be taken to the extreme recently, and it's certainly in the case of that kind of attitude towards some of the calm stuff that's happening, where the video from the CPC was just bad. It was just ill thought out and not good and silly and easy to mock and very funny. But there's been other stuff that's been said by conservative MPs and CPC comms where it's like they kind of put stuff out there and then they'll retract it or pull it back or apologize for it afterwards. And I'm thinking, well, they've already got the money. They already got their money's worth.
Or they don't. They send it in an email, Mr. Scamsky, talking about...
I'm sorry. Say his real name.
Media relations manager Sebastian Scamsky is the most made-up sounding name imaginable. I'm sure
like
he's a real guy.
Mustache that he twirls.
Right?
But like, just that.
No offense to the Scamsky family.
No.
Yeah, but if I'm using a fake name to buy stuff, it's going to be Scamsky for the rest of my life.
Anyway, he sorry, I blacked out there for a second. I was thinking of all the scammeroo things that he was doing. And like, this is nothing against Sudbury. Like, nothing against Sudbury. Lovely mid-sized town in Ontario.
So I have the email here if you'd like
to
share
please read the email.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Sebastian Scamsky sent out this email. The title was Trudeau's Lavish Retreat. And the contents say, quote, "Today, Justin Trudeau took a surprise trip up to Sudbury to appease his Liberal MPs from Ontario at their swanky retreat before the summer ends, where they will discuss ways to make life more costly and miserable for Ontarians, especially those in Northern Ontario." And so this lavish, swanky retreat was being indeed held at the Sudbury Holiday Inn Express.
He was typing that email with two fingers.
It's a full bore Holiday Inn, not a Holiday Inn.
No, it's not an Express. This one's got a
mistake.
pool.
They have continental breakfast and a
That's
pool.
right.
And one restaurant.
That Danish is going to set things off, man.
Yeah.
And a business center. I mean, this place is lavish.
Oh my God, business center.
Anyway.
Somewhere for your dad to go check
right?
emails.
Business center. Can you Xerox this for me?
You get AOL on these computers?
My favorite thing is that every photo of this Holiday Inn that you can find online was taken on like a gray day.
Everything is
like the saddest place imaginable.
Everything is
I've never been to
beige.
Sudbury. I'm sure it's lovely.
I've driven through Sudbury, saw the Big Nickel, but everything in that Holiday Inn is beige. Yeah, no, it's. I wouldn't have used those adjectives.
Retreat. There's chandeliers in the ballroom, don't you know?
They have Wi-Fi. Anyway, so that's an example of just like, it's just an exaggeration of nothingness, right?
And I think it's starting to wear really thin. Like, it's so laughable, and like, I think part of the problem is they're trying to keep the outrage cycle going constantly.
Yeah.
It's just this constant barrage of anger. But in order to do that, they're grabbing onto some really thin stuff. Or if you're certain MPs, you just make stuff up too.
Yeah.
Certain, most. Well, no, but I think you're right. It's like they're trying to, we've talked about this before, like to keep the momentum going when we're talking about, I'll use their favorite term, rage farming. Yeah. I mean, you have to sensationalize things that aren't a thing, right? Or else, like we talked about, is a slow news day. What are you going to say? Lavish and swanky Holiday Inn, right?
And I can't remember where the latest poll today came out from. I think it was Ecos that showed like an 11-point drop for the Conservatives.
Yes, it was an Ecos poll. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I really think that the rage thing is already wearing thin. I think if it was the move that Poilievre was going to take, he played it way too early.
Yeah.
'Cause, I
How
mean,
do
that
you
can
sustain that though for 4 years?
And that's it. And I think at a certain point, the rage becomes laughable. Like, you're mad at them for having a meeting in a Holiday Inn?
well, it
Like,
diminishes
have you
everything
ever
else.
been to a meeting in a Holiday Inn and think, God, this is opulent?
Can you imagine living here?
They have good mini muffin trays.
A junior suite?
Oh, we love you,
But you're
Sudbury.
right.
We love you.
I think it's that idea that we're constantly reaching for things to be angry about and be
Yeah.
raging on, and you end up making it diminishes everything else you actually bring up. So there's actual things that are brought up, and I mentioned prior to recording that I don't want to get into a disparaging situation here with a particular MP.
I
but-
will.
Can I?
You guys can do whatever you want.
Yay!
Thanks, Dad.
I'll see you guys later.
It's the Lisa and Steve show.
That's probably unwise.
But there's like serious issues that will be brought up, and then they're just tarnished by like rage baiting, and you're
Yeah.
like, what's the point of bringing this up now? All you've done is made it seem like I shouldn't care about any of it.
And it's killing me. Like, there's genuine criticisms of the Liberals. And they
Yes,
go
absolutely.
after
Yes,
nonsense.
yes. Are we going to dive? Are we going to dive into it?
Yeah,
I'm going to do it.
let's
I'm going to do it. I'm
do-
going to do it. So, my favorite, Michelle Ferrari. Hi, Michelle. She is like,
He listens in
This
the
is-
tub.
these are my opinions. Yeah, she listens in the tub. These are just my
For
opinions.
those of
They
you
do not-
listening, I'm shaking my head right now.
that he is so mad at me right now.
Disapprovingly.
He's so mad at me, but I don't care.
He's drinking a glass of water to make it clear he's
Yeah,
not going to
exactly. He's gonna get up and leave. No, but like she is a conservative MP. Obviously, she's very prolific on social media, but she is one of those ones that will just like put out these aggressive, like false information tweets. And I mean, we have examples of that all over her Twitter account or Facebook. She tends to put those on Facebook because it's Facebook. But the last one, we're talking about a very serious issue. We're talking about violence. We're talking about how it impacts children. We're talking about, and instead of taking these increases in violence, which I don't know if we can substantiate the 84% or whatever the hell it was she said, but she had the balls to put in her tweet that because of this economy, obviously blaming Justin, that children are being trafficked by their parents. To which there was a
And-
lot of outrage.
And so she claimed that this was told to her by, I want to say it's the Kawartha Sexual Assault Center.
Yeah.
And so they issued a statement basically saying, like, that's not what they informed her of is that most of the crimes that are perpetrated against young people are done by people they know and trust. That was the message that was shared.
Yeah.
Which we know, which is the
So
alert.
it's a pretty heavy misconstrual of what's happening. We're going to be very generous and say heavy misconstrual of what was.
Well,
I
I
don't
will
think
say
that's
her-
what it was called.
Her own term was that she said that her statement was inartfully worded.
Indeed, it was.
It was a lie. But this is my issue is that you have people who are going to look at that and go, holy shit, in 9 years of Trudeau, parents
Yeah.
are trafficking their children. Like, what? Like, come on.
That is a
So-
problem I have with it. That's the problem I have is that because that it's out there, inartfully worded or not, and that it's done its job.
It's made
That's
its
all
impact. Yeah.
It's made its impact.
It's-
Doesn't matter how many retractions you do.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
What's the old saying? The lie goes around the world twice before the truth puts on its shoes or something like that?
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
I
it's
believe
got to
it's
chase
pants,
after it.
but yeah,
Pants.
yeah.
Towel
Good
from the
old
bath.
pants.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like this is the thing that they do though. It's about creating this sort of post-truth environment where we have to fight on the grounds that they just make up
Mhm.
rather than fighting within the space of reality. Right? Like we have to say like instead of actually having an issue around a discussion around the issue of human trafficking, we're drawn into having a discussion about this thing that she just made. Right? It's a distraction. It distracts from the real issue. And I really think this sort of post does a disservice to the Canadian public. Like, these are people in public trust.
Okay.
And there's a responsibility to be checking what you say and to be telling people the truth. And I think, like, in Wales, they passed a law about politicians outright lying to the public.
Yeah.
And I think, why shouldn't Canada have that? Why are there protections? Like, if I am a teacher and lie to a parent about something their kid did, there are huge professional consequences to that. Why is that not the case for a politician? Like,
the issue I have is that these are very important topics, and we're having to constantly be 2 steps behind the ridiculous commentaries that are put out there about these important topics, and it devalues the topic at hand. Now, Michelle did a video talking about how, things like this, people say things like this are supposed to be nonpartisan, but they're absolutely partisan. They're not partisan. When we're talking about violence against children, when we're talking about violence against women and female presenting people and members of the 2S LGBTQIA community, or, anybody, these are issues that we all deal with. These are issues that we should all be coming together to deal with. But when you take that issue and sensationalize it and use it for fodder instead of actually trying to get something accomplished, that's the disservice. That's what she did at the Women's Committee. I will stand by it. I don't care. And that's the issue, right? But the damage is done, like you said, Stuart. People see the headline because it's strategically put in a tweet, so that's the line that you see, and that sticks in their brain. Everybody else now going back and saying, "Oh, this is wrong," or "Oh, it's been withdrawn and she, took it down." The damage is done. The damage is done. It's dangerous.
And then the other side of that, of course, being that, as Steve said, the rage becomes laughable at a point. It becomes like you can't buy into any of it anymore because you're like, well, there's a lot of garbage there, probably mostly garbage. So then important stuff like this gets washed over, gets dismissed. And it just seems like it's all just a big power play. I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's just the game of politics. They're just more interested in gaining points than actually doing anything. That's not true. They're more interested in getting points, at least marginally more interested in that than actually doing something and fixing. It's more to their people's advantage to point out, a problem and blame the other guy than it is to say that's a problem, we should fix it.
I think you're exactly right. And I think it gets to sort of, the heart of, a lot of people's frustration with Canadian politics, which is, like, if you were to just sit down and imagine a system to run our country, would it really be 2 groups of people sitting on opposite sides of the room yelling at one another? Like, is that actually how you do this? Like, and I think that's where people get frustrated is, like, our politics are not really built for getting things done. They're built for theatrics. And it used to be that the work got done in committees, and the committees are so politicized and being, like, farmed for sound bites now too, that I think it's just gotten incredibly frustrating for everybody how it's just theatrics and show and lies, and the substance of it is just getting eroded day by day. And I think the Conservatives are really pushing that a lot. Like, it's a lot of vibes-based politics. There's really no rooting in evidence. There's no rooting in numbers or beliefs. It's just vibes.
But that's the negative impact that's going to happen, right? When we're talking about things like safe consumption sites, and, that's happening in Toronto and in Ontario. Doug Ford's like, fuck them, we're going to get rid of all of them. That's the agenda of Conservatives. Now, whether obviously they're not evidence-based. They're doing whatever they feel is the right thing to do because obviously safe consumption sites are dangerous. Pull up the statistics on how many people have OD'd at a safe consumption site. 0. Okay. But another example of my fave, Michelle, in her own goddamn writing, right there, she is so opposed to them She posts and retweets things from a certain journalist that is in questionable repute right now.
Like Captain Super Spy.
But there's a program in Peterborough that is successful in terms of dealing with addiction, and it involves things that they are trying to get rid of. She doesn't want to hear about it, right? And so that's the danger, is there is no one size fits all. You can't go from, evidence-based factual information to like black and white. It's, it's either mandatory treatment and or death, right? That's not how it works.
Conservative move.
No, I know.
That's what they've been playing, is like, it's just a nonstop barrage of pretending that complicated problems are simple. Like that people experiencing addiction. Have you thought about simply not being addicted? And they're like, oh shit. Heavens.
Oh shit. I never thought of that.
Yeah. Right? Like, they just assume that everything is so simple. And that, like, the problem is that just those people who do the research and the studies and work in the field, they simply think they know best.
Yeah.
Wrong. I wear suits, so I know best, clearly.
Someone equated it on Twitter, and I don't know who it was, so I can't give them credit for it, but it was brilliant. It's like taking the floaty away from a drowning person because you believe that they should just know how to swim.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Take a life preserver away from a drowning person because you figure they should know how to swim.
Yeah. And that's it. And that's what the conservatives are doing, right? In all respects, whether it's education, whether it's, addiction, mental health, it's all of that. Sorry.
And I think we were talking about, Shannon and I were talking about this earlier today, about how, like, the safe supply sites, there's, like, if you go past a safe supply site, it's not awesome. It's not great.
It's not lavish or swanky. No, it's not
lavish and or swanky. But it's not great. But it feels like we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater a little bit in that regard. It feels like it's very rash. It's kind of like the Saskatchewan irrigation plan. It's kind of like, we're just doing this. Which is no good.
I think it's also important to note, like, when you look at a safe injection site or a safe supply site, and the appearance is, maybe not a place you want to hang out, a lot of that is just because it's serving people who are in crisis.
Oh, sure.
And I think it's really important to bear that in mind. And I think a lot of the sympathy gets lost for folks. And I think that's what the conservatives are trying to capitalize on, is turning, if you see somebody who's in a crisis, like at a safe supply site or whatever it may be, you can view them with sympathy or you can view them with contempt. And they're really trying to push contempt.
Yeah.
And it feels just, I don't know, like, calling something un-Canadian feels very strange. That's not something I normally do, but it feels very out of character for our country.
Well, shoot.
Actually, that's a lie. If you look back at our history, it is not very out of character, but I want it to be out of character, damn it.
That's what's Canadian, is wanting it to not be in our character.
But that's a good example, because I'm just going to give one example, like for Danielle Smith in my province, is that, there was this push where, she circumvented basic, like, the mayors of Calgary and Edmonton, and, put out these, like, troops that were going to go out and get rid of anybody that was houseless. Get rid of the camps and things like that, because, that's not right. But she's allowing ditch billies on the side of the highway who have set up, like, camps. And that's somehow, she has more empathy for that, because freedom, than she does for people who need a plethora of help.
Easy solution then. Easy solution. The next encampment that's about to be taken down, just say that it's a carbon tax.
Yeah.
We'll buy little
little
F Trudeau flags and just
here
plank
in this encampment in protest of the carbon tax. This is a freedom of expression issue.
Right.
Just like slap a couple F Trudeau stickers on some things and call it a protest.
There we go.
Oh my God. If you haven't seen, there's a video circulating of people driving past the dead ditch billies. And their protest is hilarious. For starters, they're playing cornhole in the ditch. But
freedom.
My favorite thing is, like, the very first thing that you see is the most Alberta sight imaginable, which is a trailer, like a camper trailer with a for sale sign on the back of it. Like, I don't think you're gonna get a lot of calls, dude.
Well, you might. Who knows?
You never know. Okay. I want to just move on here to another thing that it was interesting, which was the Abacus data poll about third rail policy platforms or voting platforms, election platforms, politicians. So those issues, those third rail issues that would be like, no, don't even bring that up. It's going to kill your campaign. And just some other issues as well. So for example, I brought this up to you guys earlier, but defund the CBC is a very popular mantra by the Conservative Party currently. And
they say it when they're meditating.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots and
Defund the
lots of reasons to be angry at the
CBC.
CBC. Absolutely.
Sure.
The upper echelons of the CBC, I think we could just take those clean off the top, and everyone else, as I've done stuff with the CBC before. I worked for the CBC before as a freelancer, like creating stuff. They're not very lavish with their money. They're not lavish and or swanky with their money at all. They're pretty tight-fisted.
So essentially, you're saying just take a little off the top, just
exactly,
Yeah.
just
and then
it's a corporate decapitation.
About 1% off the top. This the top 1% can go.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this poll asked people, would you vote for this issue? Might vote for it? Would you never vote for it? And let me see if I can find the CBC one here because I did have the percentages.
It split the room pretty evenly, if I remember right.
It did, yeah. Eliminate all government funding for the CBC. Definitely vote for that. 22%, which is a lot less than I thought. Might vote for it. 24%, and don't know 25. Never vote for 30.
It's the people who want to defund the CBC. Like they're very driven by it. That's like there's a locked in group of folks.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I think there's not as much of an appetite as
absolutely not.
No.
Pierre Poilievre expects. And I think it didn't really help his case that the Olympics coverage was really well received. Like everybody's like, man, I get to watch the Olympics for free. This is great. Yeah, we should burn this whole thing to the ground.
Yeah. And all you have to do to know the importance of the CBC, I mean, you could argue that like Bell Media or Rogers or somebody or Global or whatever would buy the rights to the Olympics, but I don't think they would. At least not the same kind of coverage. But like there's so many events that happen. You watch coverage of the Olympics on American television, like NBC or something. And whenever the Americans are not in the race anymore, they just cut away. It doesn't matter who wins. They're not interested. It doesn't matter. Whatever the Americans want. I want to share with you as well that the same numbers for definitely vote for, might vote for, never vote for also said they would like to bring back the death penalty. So defund the CBC and or bring back the death penalty.
Well, that tracks.
So okay, this is very niche, but when I was studying literature in university, I can't remember which person it was. There was a big theory about how there's like two essential instincts in humanity: Thanatos and Eros, to create and destroy. And so there's some people who are just like locked in on destroy. They're like, tear down the CBC, kill criminals, destroy. Like they just have like an inner Cobra Commander from G.I. Joe.
Hulk smash. That's just what it is. Yeah.
Let me give you some of the other vote winners. Would you like to hear vote winners or vote losers? Want to hear some third rails? Would you want to hear?
Start us with the losers.
Yeah.
The losers. So these are things that are topics that politicians are advised to not touch in Canada. Allow people to pay to access most healthcare procedures. Interesting. Very interesting. Which is good news. Right?
It's not
We're going to keep doing it, though.
We're going to keep pushing it.
We're going to do it anyway.
Followed immediately by add new taxes on sugary beverages.
Which, like, let's be real, that does feel like something the Liberals would float.
Abolish official bilingualism in Canada. Don't touch that.
Oh, yeah, no.
Tax the profit people make when they sell their primary residence. Interesting. But that's not happening. That's fine.
Had anybody really talked about that? Like, I know it was one of the possibilities the Liberals looked at and said no.
I think they were like, no, we can't do this. Whole system's based on that. We can't do that.
And people would be out with pitchforks and torches.
Yeah. Thankfully, here's something that'll make you feel good, I think, is that a vote loser is to talk about criminalizing abortion. Good news. Introduce mandatory military service for everyone aged 18 to 20.
Oh.
raise the eligibility age for retirement benefits like CPP and OAS. And finally,
well, the Conservatives floated that last time they were in office.
Yeah.
And then finally, legalize the use of all drugs, including hard drugs like heroin and cocaine. These are vote. And as far as I know, no party wants to make heroin and cocaine legal.
No.
So that's fine.
Okay.
Vote winners, increase income taxes for the richest 1% of Canadians, make public transit free in every Canadian city.
Yes.
Make university and college free for all Canadian students.
Yes.
Eliminate the federal carbon tax. Force religious organizations to pay taxes.
Yes.
And Steve, you had, I agree with all those, actually, because I think the carbon tax is just, it's not good. It's a good idea, but it's tarnished. Just get rid of it. Let it go. It's
politically toxic at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah, get rid of it. And then you've taken the wind out of the conservative sails.
Do what the cons would do. Just move it somewhere else.
And this is it. Is like, I want to be really clear here. It's not that I think we should abandon environmental action.
No.
Oh, I do.
If the conservatives get in on axe the tax, they aren't going to replace it with an alternative. They're just going to tear it down. If the liberals don't come forward and basically say, like, we get it. You're pissed about the carbon tax.
Yeah.
We hear you. Here's the plan.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't come forward with something like that, they deserve to get bumped in the next election.
I know, but it's terrifying. So we have time. I mean, I think they need to review it. You're right.
Yeah,
I mean,
lots of time.
Like, that's really, though, I think the message that the liberals need to send to the public is we will listen.
Yes. Yeah.
Because right now, do you really feel like they're listening to public opinion?
They're having to dig their heels in, right? But I mean, I think you're right. Like I fully support environmental issues.
Every time you listen to a liberal talk about the carbon tax, like especially a liberal MP, they just explain harder. They're like, the problem isn't the tax. The problem is that you simply don't understand it, you smooth-brained fool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not always.
All you other smooth-brained fools out there. Thank you very much for watching and or listening to Podcast is Broken. You can find us at podcastisbroken.ca, where you can sign up with your email address if you got one of those now, and you'll get an email notification. You'll get an email
Our
notification.
Listeners have the wrinkliest brains.
They do.
They add extra wrinkles when they listen.
I'm doing my spiel, Steve. Shut up for a second. You go to podcastisbroken.ca and you can sign up with your email address if you got one of those. That was a whole joke I had going. And you'll get an email notification every time a new episode comes out. You can also find us on your favorite podcast platform. Podcast is Broken. And should we do our theme song?
Let's do.
Okay, let's do it. Let's finish off.
Okay.
Right, what are we doing? What are we doing for a theme song this time? I have an instrument actually now this time.
Oh, what do you have?
Oh, that is so squeaky in my ear. I love it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna keep going like this till you guys join in.
Oh, I wasn't comfortable. Podcast is broken. 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 Podcast is broken.
Big finish.
Podcast. How long do I hold this note for?
Stop it now.
Thanks so much for watching and or listening, everyone. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Take care of yourselves, folks.
Bye.